Welcome once again to The Sage, and thank you, as usual, for being with us. The last few weeks have been exciting, but they've also been very, very thought-provoking. We started this series by looking at our collective action within the past few months, particularly the 2023 national elections that took place. And we on The Sage reflected deeply and came out convinced that that election was actually a triumphant one in which this country, in which all of us as a people made a great deal of achievements. We talked about what we felt were the 5 to 6 major achievements of that singular event. We talked about the fact that, in fact, it was probably the greatest demonstration of patriotism in recent times for this country. The way we all came out with a single mind, with a single objective of making our beautiful country a much better and stronger one. How we demonstrated that in the wish for new and better leadership, in the numbers with which we came out and voted, in the youth movements that sprang up across the country, and so many other things. And so, yes, history indeed bears us out that a lot was achieved and that we can never turn back on those achievements. And so the series you're watching, move on from there. Having demonstrated the love of our country in the way we tried to vote, we do need, as a group, as a collective community, as one nation, to continue to do our utmost best to make our country a great country, because it is a great country. And so on The Sage, we started looking at various aspects of our nation, our nationality, and we began the discussion on what can we do? What should we be doing today and tomorrow to continue the work we have started? Because in the final analysis, it doesn't matter who governs or who doesn't. Our common and steadfast objective is that our country is a great country and that we all need to work to ensure it reaches its full potential, to ensure that the majority of our people in this great country indeed benefit from the common good. A few weeks ago, the past few episodes, we started with young people. Our young people in this country made us proud during the elections we talked about. They came out as never before. And so we discussed how, moving forward, should the spirit, the fervor, the hard work, the passion that we witnessed amongst our young people be sustained and indeed increased in the weeks, months, and years to come. We cannot turn back. We must continue to make progress. And so in this episode, we again discuss a very, very strategic and vital aspect of our collective community and nationality that needs to be fostered, recognized, strengthened in order that we build a great country. And so today, it's such a pleasure to discuss the issue of family. the issue of the strategic importance of the family as a unit, as an entity in our nation building. Why? I think the answer is obvious. The family is the bedrock of any society. Strong families build strong communities, which in turn can build a strong nation. It is the family that our young people first learn moral and spiritual values from. The family gives meaning to their lives. The family is indeed the centerpiece of any society. When you think about it, it is from the context of family. It is within the context of the family unit that we all begin to evolve as human beings who grow up and interact, hopefully, in a positive and social manner in a society. The family is so important. It is the first platform on which a child, and indeed any human being, learns to relate with its world. And so to discuss this very, very important topic, it is my pleasure to have on set with me today a wonderful young woman who it's been my pleasure to have on the show before. And because I listened to her in the previous episode, and indeed have interacted with her on a personal level for quite some time, I have admired her passion, her integrity, her unshakable belief in issues of ethics, issues of family, issues of morality, and how, despite her commitments, her many roles, she gives generously of her heart, her time, to the concept of family, to the concept of community. And a great deal of what she now spends all her time doing is centered indeed around that. And so I quickly snapped her up. I want to tell you that we are privileged to have on the stage today a really, really wonderful lady. Stay with me. When we come back, I will unveil our treasure to you. Thank you. Welcome once again to the stage. And thank you for coming back to be with us. Before we went for the intermission, I was just about to unveil our treasure to you. Our privileged, our guest, our special guest on this show to discuss the all-important issue of family. Please join me as I welcome Dr. Inya Ode to this show.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know, I feel particularly triumphant in having made her to come back to the stage. Dr. Ode, I will call you Inya from now on. Yes. I like informality.
Inya is great. I love that too. Yeah.
Has been a guest. We've been privileged to have her before on the show. And I never forgot some of the things she discussed in that particular group discussion we had. And some of it hinged around the issue of family.
True.
And remained with me. And so when we come to this issue of strategic role of the family in nation building, you were a natural choice.
I'm honored.
Inya is passionate. She's a young woman, a young lady who puts passion in everything she does. When she believes ardently in something, she is ardent about it. She's somebody who places a great deal of value on ethics, issues of morality, issues of good motherhood, issues of supporting, counseling young people. All of it come as critical elements of the family. And so, yes, you were a natural choice. Let me say, for the sake of our viewers, that Inya is a broadcaster, an event compare. She's a humanitarian, in fact, a veterinarian by profession, strangely enough, but essentially a development enthusiast, somebody who believes in development, who believes in supporting people, empowering people towards a better society, a better community.
Yeah.
She carved a niche for herself as a celebrated on-air personality in radio broadcasting in Nigeria. She was the host of the popular radio show Let's Talk Abuja and the Midday Dialogue on 95.1 Nigeria Info Abuja, indeed until November 30, 2020. I hope it wasn't the COVID that stopped it.
No, not at all.
Today, Inya is the head of the new media unit at the Luke Stera Leadership Foundation, a wonderful foundation that does many, many wonderful good things.
Yeah.
Perhaps someday we will have the pleasure of also having them on the show. But today, Inya is here in her own capacity because of her deep knowledge of social issues, of family issues, and the way she's devoted her life and her time to indeed advancing those issues. Inya, you're very welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm honored and really humbled to be here. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
We are the ones that are getting. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to do something a little wider than often I do on the stage. Many times on the stage, I do bring people in and really get their opinion, listen to them as they talk to our audience. Today, I will co-discuss with you in my capacity as an old woman, as a sage, but seriously as a mother and a grandmother,
Right.
and one who has also, I think I share many similar passions with you when it comes to building our society and building our world. So we will bounce off and discuss.
Sure.
I have talked about the fact that family is indeed the bedrock of any society. But even before I ask you to also comment on that and give your own impression, tell us what you think about the family as a unit, as a family in the society. Let's start, I think, if you will humor me, by discussing the family in the context of Africa, in the context of the African culture.
You know, when we say family is everything, family is really everything for us here in Africa. I believe it's the same thing for the world, you know, in different parts of the world, though at different levels. But then we realize that the family is important. The family is the nucleus of society. The family is the smallest unit of society. And that is important because that's where birth happens. That's where children are born into. You know, a child is not just born, you know, like that. A child is actually born into a family. And that family is where that child learns, that child grows, that child is nurtured, that child learns how to care for others, that child learns how to share, that child learns what love is. You know, that's what the family is. And in our society, in Africa, I think no matter how poor a family is, that is important. That the most important thing is that we are together as a family. We have food to eat, no problem. We don't have, we're okay. As long as we're together, we keep struggling and then we keep going on. But we still hold ourselves very, very tightly, and we hold our values very dear. And that's another thing that comes out of families. Values. What values are you learning? What values are we teaching as parents, in the family? And that's where a lot of values actually come in. So besides what our religions teach, besides what Islam teaches or Christianity teaches, you also have the family that teaches you, okay, this is right and this is wrong, all based, of course, on our faith. So there's so much happening in that African, in that African family, in that traditional family, that, you just can't throw away and say, well, the family doesn't matter anymore. I know in these days it's a bit confusing. People have all kinds of values. People have all kinds of thoughts about families. People have been betrayed, maybe, by family members, and they say, well, no, I'm not dealing with any family member again. But for us, family is family. There are things that definitely happen within families. I mean, there are conflicts that happen within families. But you see, what is a family without resolving those conflicts? And that's why in our traditional space, in our spaces as Africans, we still hold that family unit dear, because it's everything. Really. I mean, I have my brothers, I have my sisters to run to, I have my parents, I have, I have my in-laws to run to as well. I mean, it's a close-knit thing, and you just can't throw that away. And I think that's one thing that we still have in this part of the world, that we still have, that makes so much sense, and gets us going forward. That know that, no, you have your cheerleaders, you have your cheerleading team backing you up, and you have that support system. Support system, very important. If we don't build that support system, then we lose it. Because at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, it's that support system you need.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. You made such very, very important points. But even before we expand a bit more on that, let me just say that I think because I'm older, I can still remember a bit more of the older villages from which we come as Nigerians, and from which, again, a great deal of people in Africa generally, and, come from. For when I think of my grandmothers and my great-grandmothers, in fact, for culturally, we existed as a people because of the family.
Yeah.
Everything in the village or in our community stemmed from the family. There. I remember something that people say, colloquial language in Nigeria, where you say you don't have any home training. If you misbehave, you don't have any home training. Because for all of us, training actually, in terms of good behavior and bad behavior, is a major responsibility of the home.
Absolutely.
In the traditional African culture, in the villages, everything was home-centered. If it was food, it's a home thing.
Yeah.
If it was education, it is home learning.
Yeah.
We teach the new generation is taught by the older people.
Exactly.
We hand down stories, we hand down traditions, we say what is allowed and what is not, and so on and so forth. So for the African in particular, I usually insist on that. When I worked for many years abroad, I tell them that in the African culture, family was everything. We have reverence for elders.
Yes.
Again, because of that.
Exactly.
We respected the knowledge they had. Again, because they handed down knowledge, tradition they preserved and handed down, and so on and so forth. Care, like you have said, is family. Whether it's care of the young or care of the elderly, it's a family responsibility. And indeed, that's why in our socialization context, we also say extended family.
Exactly.
Family is everything.
Yeah.
Nuclear, extended, whatever. It was all about family.
And one other thing you mentioned that, going back to how things were, was that a child is not just a child of that nuclear family. Everybody looked out. So if I did something wrong in my friend's house, I would be scolded by my friend's parents. And the parents of my friend would actually tell my parents what I did. And then my parents would, do the needful. My parents would do the needful. So it wasn't just about my family.
Yeah.
It's also about all other families around, that there was that connection. So you are guarded wherever you go. You're guided, and you're like, look, I can't misbehave here. If not, my parents will hear about it. And then
you will be dragged by the ear to your
parents. Right. My parents would hear about it, and I would not want that whooping back home. So I would actually tame myself and guide myself wherever I am. And that actually helped in building a lot of us, really, and to show that close-knit family. So it's not just about your own family, but also about other families around.
So that what you and I actually saying is that family, your own family, they all come together to form your community.
Absolutely.
And communities come together to form our country.
That's it.
That we're saying that the bedrock of
every
what
society.
We call society, country, nation, is that
it's still
family.
That family.
And therefore, for any country, any nation to be healthy, most of the family units still need to be healthy, because that is where it starts.
Very true.
And that is where it is sustained.
Very true. As we said, that's where values are taught. So if you don't teach right or wrong, or you don't show right or wrong, this is not just about teaching, because parents are very good at saying, okay, so don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, or do this or do this. But then the example is what the child learns from the most. So if you're telling a child, go and read your book, you need to read, and then the child never sees you holding a book, the child is like, okay, so I'm supposed to read, but all right, so where is the example? If you're telling the child, no, don't do this, don't smoke, don't drink, don't do this, don't do drugs, don't do that. But then what is the child seeing from the parents? What's the child seeing from the adults around? What examples are we showing? So it's not just about, learning the right and the wrong. It's also about showing the examples to say, look, this is right and this is wrong. You're telling a child to obey all the regulations in a country, for instance, all the rules and regulations. And then you have your children in the car and you're breaking a traffic light. So what exactly are you teaching that child? That it's okay to do so. So showing, I think it's much more important than even just speaking and saying, do this or do that. Showing the examples and teaching those values, because it's from the family. The child learns those values. And if that child learns the values, they would know what to, expect on the outside.
I think, again, that is so important. And for our viewers, I think Inya and I are in full agreement about the very, very strategic role and importance of the family in our nation building, in our nation. Stay with us. When we come back, we will discuss on, so now we have agreed it's important, but what is the situation today? We'll be back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the previous segment, Inya and I agreed that the family was indeed strategic and important. And we felt, I think we agreed, that even as Africans, it's always been the way we socialized as a people. But here we are today. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers and grandmothers have gone. Where is the family unit today? How functional? How much of those sacred elements and tenets of the family that we held on to in the past, how much of it is still with us?
Where do I start? I think we still have it going, thankfully. Some people who still have those values and, as you said, those tenets from way back when are still holding on to them and replicating and teaching their children. But we live in an age where the family unit is under attack. I must say so, like it sounds very, or very weird, but that's true. The family unit is under attack. I mean, there's so many things that are just militating against family life, wholesome family life. I mean, divorce rates are up, separation rates are up. People get married today, in 2 weeks' time, they've parted ways. You have children who are growing up in dysfunctional, relationships and circumstances. You have children, you have lots of addiction going on in our society. Not to talk of technology and the role technology plays. Technology is great, but then we have seen a lot of destruction actually come to family life because of technology. And of course, I mean, this is something very common abroad. You have the LGBTQ situation going on and all of that. And all these actually affect family life. Because, I mean, if you have gay partners, for instance, so there are no children involved. How are we going to procreate? And the purpose of family life is procreation. One of the main things about family life, besides, the companionship and the love, between the partners, is also procreation. So that is actually a problem. And right now, there's just attack from different places. Is it from the media? Is it from from everywhere? Really,
media,
I mean, it's
traditional
just,
media,
it's just everywhere. And you're just doing your best to stay sane and still remember all those values that your mother and father or grandparents actually taught us, to say, okay, so this is what family is supposed to be. This is how it is. This is how we have known it to be. But right now, the world is telling you, no, this is not how it's supposed. That one is old-fashioned. This is how it's supposed to be. So there is a lot of attack on the family. And also to say that, I mean, that common saying, nemo dat quod non habet. You can't give what you don't have. If parents don't have it, what are they giving? If parents don't have those values and those tenets and those ethics and all those things that came from our parents and our grandparents and all, if parents don't have it, then how exactly are they going to give it to their children? That's a problem. Because a lot of people are stuck, like, okay, so we'll just go with the flow and just go with what is happening, go with what is trending, right? And not realize that, no, what is trending might not exactly be right. So I still need to keep it in my mind that I should know what is right and what is wrong, what I should teach my children, and how I should actually uphold those tenets to my children. That's a big, big challenge that we have today. We have a lot of people who just want to go with the flow. So everybody's going abroad. Oh yeah, let's go. So everybody's throwing parties. Oh yeah, let's go. So everybody's buying house in whatever part of town. Okay, we're going to do that. Even though you know that, look, I don't really need to do it. I don't really have to do that. Of what use is it? People are not thinking through their choices before they make them, especially where the family is concerned. And that's because, that connection, this topic is so important because a lot of people have not connected family life to nation building. We've not connected it. We've not. We've lost that connection.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Agreeing with you and say, in fact, the family is the custodian of our conscience.
Absolutely.
It is the family where we uphold what is right and wrong. If your child or your brother or your sister or whoever comes home with a lot of goods funds that they're unable to clearly tell you where it was acquired from. If families rejected such things, we would reduce a great deal the corruption in this country. It's just to show that it is all linked.
True.
That if we say we have a great deal of corruption in our society, it also means that there are many of us at the family level who are condoning and accepting them.
Exactly. And that is a problem. Because, I mean, in the old, so let me call it the old days. in the old days, I've heard stories. I've heard lots and lots of stories of people who just bought a car, for their father or their mother, and then the car is rejected. Like, where did you get this from? Who gave you the money? What is your pay slip like? And all that. And questions were asked. But today, it's taken with open arms. In the old days, people would call such a person a thief. That your parents will be the ones to call you a thief. That you are a thief. You stole this money. How are you able to afford such a gift for me? How are you even able to afford such a thing for yourself? But today, because of the warped values people have, especially about money and acquisition and all of that, it just keeps propagating itself and questions are not asked. The parents are not asking questions. The community is not asking questions because of the small monies that they also get at the end of the day.
Not just not asking questions.
Yeah.
Actually propagating it and supporting it and applauding it.
Yes.
By giving them titles.
Okay.
By giving them honors.
Okay.
I mean, what can be more terrible than that?
And that is how the nation just keeps going down. Because the family units that should actually uphold these tenets and uphold these values is not living up to expectation. And if questions are not asked at the family level, is it those of us on the outside that will now come and ask questions and our questions will be heard? If that unit is not asking the questions and not interrogating as to how one is able to come up with 106 billion naira. How? Where did you get it from? Questions will be asked. Wives will ask questions. Husbands should ask questions. Parents, even children should ask questions and say, what's going on? How are you able to afford this kind of thing?
So, Daddy, this is your job. If provides use that big salary, ask them. Parents also need to account.
Can I tell you something? Ma'am, we went to a school. We visited the school in the course of our work at Luxterra. And, we're just talking with the children and all of that. Very elite school. And, some of them now said, they're not feeding us well in the school. And we're like, this school, big school like this, they're not feeding you well. What do you mean by that? I said, if my father was able to pay over 500,000 naira for my school fees, then they should be able to feed us properly. So they know what their parents are paying. And some of them actually told us that, I know my father cannot afford this money. I don't know what's happening with him. Because the children speak to us. The children are very free and they're able to speak with us and just tell us whatever it is. And they tell us that they know their parents cannot really afford this money. But, well, they are bringing them to this school anyway. And it became a cause of concern.
Yeah.
Because the children know.
They're processing, they're thinking about it.
So they know that your salary is not really up to, shouldn't be up to so and so. Children are growing every day and they're exposed to all sorts of things. They have the internet to check whatever it is that they want to check. And if they know this, then you just begin to wonder what is going on, what's happening to that family unit. If we're not able to secure it, if we're not able to protect it, and, have it still the same way. We may not have it exactly the same way. I'm sure some people would say, let's go back to the good old days. Well, yeah, the good old days are fantastic. But with technology and the way the world is moving,
evolves.
Exactly. There's a lot of evolving going on. And we should be able to evolve with it. But we shouldn't let go of what we have known. That's just the
Absolutely,
point of it.
Because like we're saying, in the end, the fundamental conscience of a nation is the family.
It's the family.
That's where it starts.
True.
That's where you begin the molding. And not just the molding of the young, but the family and community are indeed the gatekeepers of our ethical standards.
I think one other challenge that we've faced in this generation is isolation. Too many families are isolated. My children can't play with my neighbor's children because there's some fear. Two houses are in the same block and there's a wall in between. Our children cannot play. there is no connection. People are isolated.
Okay.
People are walling themselves off and then now losing that. So it's just about me, my family, me. And you're not thinking about other people. You're not thinking that those children you're caging will actually meet other children one day. And who knows what that level of meeting would be. So the isolation is killing us. Not being able to allow our children go and play football. I know there's insecurity. I know there's a fear of kidnapping. I know I understand all of that. Mm-hmm. But what about neighbors just coming together? What about our children just coming together? We live in an estate, for instance. Mm-hmm. Why can't our children play together? Why can't the parents actually relate with one another? I remember when we moved into a particular estate.
You don't want to say the name, man.
My husband and I always have this tradition of going round, at least to the nearest neighbors, to say, oh, we just moved in and all of that and all. And, you know, we went into one house and the person was like, no, nobody has ever done that before. I've never done it before. I just move in and I move in and that's it. But in a bid to, and that's because people are isolated. And in that isolation, a lot of things happen. Depression happens. Suicide happens. A lot of ills happen. Drug addiction, all sorts of addiction happens. Just because you're keeping to yourself and minding your business. Nobody says you should put your nose in other people's business. But at least let that level of socialization happen. Because we are one community. It is from that community that we build our nation. I think that's a link people really need to understand.
That is so true. And let me also add that is so, and it's made more complex by the fact that technology now allows allows the kind of interaction that is potentially even more dangerous.
True.
You see, through social media and so on, children and young people get into groups or conversations with people sometimes the parents can't even monitor.
Exactly.
And so they learn the wrong things.
Exactly.
They learn not to have physical contact. I mean, everybody's eye is on their phone and their platforms. Many times, even within a family, parents and children, everybody's phone is occupying their attention.
True.
And the communication and discussions and conversations that should happen in a family is, for many, doesn't happen.
Exactly.
So those are further complexities.
And so many things are lost in those in that scenario. Like, okay, so maybe my daughter may be going through something, and if I'm not asking questions, or if I'm not observant enough to see her mood or to see a change, or my sons are going through something and I'm not observant enough to actually ask or probe to find out what's going on. The child may be bullied in school, the child may be abused, so many things might be happening, but then because we are so caught up in, oh, I need to work, oh, I have things to do on my phone, oh, I have this, I have that, and then the child now gets into that wall, just builds that wall and goes into social media and goes into the internet, and that's it. The child is lost. So many things are actually lost when that interaction does not happen. So much is lost.
And let me say that the danger of some of the technologies and social media is not just to the child.
Yes.
That is where we're all exposed to pornography and all kinds of things that could also, be a temptation and a distraction for the parents themselves.
Exactly.
So the whole family as an entity is facing new dangers, new uncharted areas, because of the globalization, because of the technologies.
Very true. Very true.
So, I mean, we could go on. There's so many other aspects.
Many.
But we will come back. And in the last segment, discuss perhaps the bottom line for this topic, which is the fact that having discuss problems, what do we do to make the family stronger and to make the family a better institution for nation building?
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back to The Sage, and thank you for being with us. I hope you haven't missed the wonderful discussions we've had so far, where Inya and I talked about family, the importance of the family, where we talked about the African context, special family context. And then we talked about the situation today and the myriad of problems that our families, our modern, so to say, modern families face. But the crux of the matter, however, in the end, it's not just to catalog our problems or to remind ourselves of the past. It is indeed to be constructive about it. Since we've agreed it's such an important structure for life, for nation building, we recognize there are many problems with it at this time. But I think the meat of the discussion now is really, so what do we do to improve? We, when I say we, I mean collectively, all of us as Nigerians. Everybody has a role to play.
True.
What do we do? One, to strengthen that institution and advocate if necessary. And then secondly, use it for nation building.
I think for me, the first thing would be to ask the question, why? Why do I want a family? Why would I want to have children? Why do I even want to get married? You know, if we answer all those questions and we get the positive answers of, you know, building people, building ourselves, growing, and not just the question of, okay, so, or the answer that is, it's my time and I'm of age and all of that, which are some of the answers that we get. If we get those answers that are about building and growing with another person and actually building and helping young children to grow, then I think we'll be getting it right. Intentional parenting is what a lot of us are talking about now. You must be intentional about being a parent. It's not just about having young people call you mommy or daddy. No. But what exactly are you delivering as a parent to those young minds? What are we teaching? What are we imparting? What exactly are we telling them? What are we showing these young minds? That's what's important. That's intentional parenting. Parenting with a focus and parenting with a view to ensure that this child grows into something a lot better even than yourself. That's what it's all about. And that's what parents, I think, need to think about a bit more. Intentional parenting is about listening to your children. It's about having conversations with them. It's about giving them a chance to grow. It's about encouraging them and ensuring that even as you're teaching all those lessons, all the thoughts, all the tenets and all the values and all the ethics and all the principles, you're teaching all of those, but you're also following it up with love. It's not just about caning a child, beating up a child and doing all of that, but also showing that child love. Some people will say, spare the rod and spoil the child. The rod does not have to be cane all the time. It can also be withdrawing some privileges from that child. It can be, just taking away something that they like to ensure that you pass a message. And it's not just taking it away, but telling them the reason. This is why I'm taking this thing away. You did this, you did so and so that the child will learn from that example. This is how our children learn. So intentional parenting, parents being there for their children. We have too many parents who are there but are absent. They're physically there, they're at home. Fathers, mothers, they're at home, but then they are just not there.
They're not interacting.
Not there.
They're not interacting, communicating, discussing, impacting.
They are not there. And if we have not there parents all around, the children will learn from the streets. And whatever they learn from the streets may come back to haunt those parents who are not there. Because the street has a lot of teachers. So many teachers.
Waiting to compete with you.
So many. In fact, there's so many. We say it all the time that there's so many teachers waiting. They're all competing. There's a lot of competition for our children's attention. And if we as parents don't give them the attention they desire, the attention that they want, they will get that attention elsewhere. And that attention may actually come back to haunt us. So it's to be intentional about our parenting.
Can I
Sure.
jump in
Please
there
go ahead,
and
ma'am.
say that I love that phrase, intentional parenting. And it reminded me of something I came across recently. You know, when some of these sayings that we get on social media,
Yeah.
social media has its good and bad.
Of course.
But it resonated so much with me that I indeed shared it with my children who are all grown up. It said that for a parent, happiness is the day you look around and realize that your children have grown up to be good people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That is the ultimate goal of an intentional parent.
Absolutely.
It is someday when they have flown the coop, as we say, you see them in their own homes, in their own families,
their own spaces, doing
and see
amazing
that
stuff.
they're good people.
Yeah.
Then you know you
Yeah.
have succeeded.
Absolutely.
And this should be, to me, the goal of every parent,
Yeah.
every family, to produce people who function in the society as good people.
Because at the end of the day, ma'am, those good people will make a good society.
Absolutely.
They'll make a good society. So if we have those bunches of good people in different places, definitely our society will be good. There will be no corruption. There will be no stealing. There will be no violence. There will be people who actually love each other. There will be people who are not ethnic bigots, because they've grown up knowing that, look, we're all one and we're all together, and we need to come together to build this nation. Another point that I would want to emphasize on is leadership. It is from the family that leadership is taught. There are examples of the father is a leader. It's not just about President Buhari, who is out in another few days. The father is a leader. The mother is a leader. The big brother is a leader. The big sister is a leader. Everybody is a leader at different levels in the family. And that is something that we must understand. That the leadership you display in that family tells on the nation. What type of leadership?
That is the first time a young person sees leadership.
Exactly.
It is that one in the home.
Yeah. So what type of a shepherd are you at home? Are you the shepherd who loves, who cares for, who nurtures everybody, and who takes care of the flock that is in your hands? Or are you the shepherd who will not care, who will just scatter the flock, so to speak, and everybody just runs away from you? What type of leadership are we showing in the home? Because it's that type of leadership that we'll see in the National Assembly.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
in Aso Rock, or in government
imitate
houses.
The people they think are their, idols and
Are we mentors at home? Are we leaders at home to the young minds in our care? Because it's from us, it's from the parents, it's from the caregivers, it's from the adults around that children actually ape those leadership qualities. They're seen as leaders at different levels. If we're not good leaders, if we don't show that leadership, that ability to bring people together, that ability to love and to care for, genuinely care for each other, if we don't see those qualities coming through in the home, then what kind of a nation are we expecting? What kind of a nation would we expect, really? So it's important that those leadership skills actually come through. But sometimes, when we talk to leaders and we say leaders, many people look at other people. They don't look at themselves. The father will not look at himself. The mother will not look at herself as a leader. But you are leaders in your home. What type of leadership are you showing to the children in your care? I mean, that's very, very key for me.
I agree so much. And let me say that to every family as well, as because we're now talking about how can we use that family as an institution towards nation building. To say that, so one element is what you do
Yeah.
in terms of molding the children or the young people under your care.
Yeah.
But let me also remind every family in this country that you also have the role of being the conscience of your communities,
True.
being the conscience of this nation.
True.
And so, apart from what you do with those children under your roof,
Mm-hmm.
it is what you as a family also stand for in your community. You know, it reminds me of the biblical passage somewhere where they said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So you also have a role as a family entity.
Yes.
Where within your community or your town or wherever, you're saying, we as a family stand for this.
Exactly. And that's where the code comes in. So for us, for my family, we have a code. Okay. So it just simply talks about, you know, the things we want. We're honest, we're people of integrity, we love each other no matter where anybody comes from. And we recite it, you know, with the children. Yeah.
That's
the
a
children
great
know
example.
it. They recite it all the time. They know what we call it the Ode code. Right.
That's
what
we
it is.
Must put this on the screen for everybody.
You know, so the Ode code, and they recite it all the time, and they've known it right from when they're small. And I believe it's something that they will take on with them even as they grow older.
Absolutely.
Those
things stick.
Yeah. So they will take it with them. And I think it's important because these are reminders of who you are, just like you said, reminders of what we stand for as a family. We don't steal, we don't kill, we're not dishonest, we don't take what doesn't belong to what doesn't belong to us without permission. You know, we don't do all of that. We're not ethnic bigots. We love each other no matter where the person comes from, what their race is, wherever they come from. We love them as they are. You know, these are some of the elements in the Ode code. And if every family actually imbibe this, it will be so good just to know that, look, there are things this family is known for. There are things that we stand for, and we do not want you to go against it. Whenever my children are going out, you know, and they know this in their heads, what we tell them is, you must remember 4 things. You must remember who you are. You must remember whose you are. You must remember where you come from. And you must remember your values. These 4 things. So every time they're dropped off in school, remember your values. Remember these 4 things. Remember who you are, whose you are, where you come from, and remember your values. Because they help as reminders. They're moral reminders for our children to know that, okay, so there are some things that they need to hold on to. And this will actually help them be better in society. I mentioned the point about the traffic light earlier.
Yeah.
You know, and a child sees, this happened to me, was a practical example. I broke a red light, right? And my son was in the car. I think he was about 6 or 7 at that time. And I ran through the red light. And after some time, he just said, Mommy, was that light red? and I just went, I could not say anything. All I said was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a bad example. I shouldn't have run that light. I should have waited, you know, and all of that. And he said, oh, well, it's okay. So he kept on playing in the back or was writing whatever he was. But this has stuck with me for so many years. This has stuck with me, knowing that's why I say it's not just about telling them, it's about showing them the example. If we want them to keep the rules and regulations of the country, if we want them to keep the traffic lights, to ensure that they don't run red lights, then we should be the example that they see. That's the point about all of this. I mean, all these are ways to actually build our nation. All these are ways to actually say, look, if we want a better country, then we need to start from home. We need to begin, it's like a fresh start, so to speak, right? We need to begin anew to teach those lessons and keep pounding on those lessons to ensure that, you know, we have a better country at the end of the day.
I think that is profound. And so to our viewers, what we are both saying really is that we are agreed that we need to build our country.
True.
We are agreed that there's a great deal that needs to be done. We feel there's a great deal of corruption and indiscipline. And we say that we want that to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that a critical way of changing, of improving, has to be from the home,
Yeah.
from the family.
Yeah.
And therefore, because without it, we can't have sustainable change.
True.
You know,
Exactly.
it has to have a basis.
Exactly.
But the
Exactly.
message to all our viewers is really that everybody has a role in this.
That's the point.
Each one of us come from a family. In my language, we say tabubo. Today is early. What each family can do has to begin with today. It's never too late.
True.
It is never for tomorrow.
True.
It is
It's now.
from now. And we're saying, if you don't already have a code of behavior and ethics that is regularly mentioned and adhered to within the home, today is early enough to start.
Absolutely. True.
Let
Very
us,
true.
within our families, each of us, begin to discuss issues of fairness, issues of detribalization,
Yeah.
issues of national unity.
Yeah.
They're not high topics.
Exactly.
They're topics that are so important. There should be fabrics of every family's life.
True.
Because if we as a family candidly discuss it and begin to do our best to practice it, before we know where we are, it is everywhere in our country.
I completely agree with you. And that point about everybody has a role to play is so important. I think people outsource their responsibilities to others. The teachers will handle it. You know, the teachers in school will
the
do it.
politicians will deal with
The
it.
pastor will do it.
The activists will do it.
The imam will handle it. You know, they
Yeah.
will teach my children. They will do this. They will do that. No, we should not outsource our responsibility. We should take up the responsibility and ensure that we do everything we can. And as you said, the time is now. Now is all that we have. It's not about dwelling in the past or looking too far into the future, because the future we want to build begins right now. Right now.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such an important and absorbing topic that we could literally go on for another 2 hours and have so much to say. But I sincerely hope that many of our people watching would take to heart the things you and I have said. Today is when it needs to begin. If we're not already doing so, let us, each of us, because we all come from family units, begin the discussion and the acceptance of ethics that is necessary.
Yeah.
Let us discuss.
Yeah.
Let us educate and inform our young people. If we have biases, discuss candidly. Because the fact is, we cannot hope to progress if the biases continue to exist.
True.
Let each of us accept, each family, each person accept that we all have a vital role in nation building.
Absolutely.
Within that family context, no matter the context in which we exist, we cannot outsource it to others and think we don't have a role. What we are asking is that you join us in something like a pledge, if I may say so,
True.
where every family in this country accepts that the change begins with us.
True.
We will from today begin to do our best to make our families the kind of families that are supportive and loving, ones that inform, educate as necessary.
Exactly.
Let us all agree that we need to build and make our country better, because then we will all benefit.
True. At the end of the day, everybody wins when that happens.
Let us start today using the families we all belong to work to make our country a better place. Let us as families look back on our recent history and say we have begun the journey from henceforth, we will do our own best to think and be proud of our country, Nigeria, and to uphold the principles of ethics and morality, of fellowship, of love within our family, within our communities, within our country, that will inevitably result in a better country for us all.
Absolutely.
We thank you all. Think about it. Do your own personal family pledges. Let us come and work together for the good of our country.
Yeah.
That is the way the good Lord made it and wanted us to live it. We thank you. See you next week.